My mom took $10,000 to hand my 14-year-old sister to a grown man for the night, then told me she's found her calling. When I begged her to bring Katie home, she laughed and said, "Mr. Creep is very pleased with his investment." I stayed silent. That was 3 months ago. Last night, she locked herself in the prison bathroom and cried so quietly I almost missed it. In my family, all the girls had to follow one rule: charm the older gentleman or watch your sister go hungry. You see, every Friday and Saturday night, my mom would dress me and my 14-year-old sister Katie in our nicest dresses and drive us to expensive restaurants downtown. We'd meet older men for dinner, men who paid mom cash afterward for our delightful company. She called it learning proper social skills. My mom started this after dad left us 3 years ago. Women have survived on their beauty and charm for centuries, she'd tell us while curling our hair. I'm teaching you valuable life lessons. She kept a leather journal with names and phone numbers and payment amounts written in her perfect handwriting. So when I turned 16, I spent my birthday at Morton's Steakhouse, laughing at some pharmaceutical executive's boring stories about golf. I tried to tell myself it was just dinner, that I could zone out and pretend I was somewhere else. But mom had trained us too well. We knew exactly how to tilt our heads when listening and touch their arms when they made jokes. The first few dinners seemed harmless enough. Sure, the men were old enough to be our fathers, but they mostly just talked about their jobs and complained about their ex-wives. They'd slip mom anywhere from $100 to $300 on the way out. For the girls' college funds, they'd say with a wink. Katie handled it worse than me. She started getting stomach aches before every dinner, real ones that made her throw up. Mom's solution was to give her Pepto-Bismol and tell her to stop being so dramatic. Everything changed the night mom lost her job at the insurance company. I heard her crying in her room, going through bills. The next morning at breakfast, she announced new rules. From now on, you need to be more affectionate with our dinner guests. A kiss on the cheek at the end of the night. Maybe sit a little closer. They're paying good money for your time. I watched Katie's face go white. Mom, that's gross. These men are like 50. These men are keeping a roof over your head. Mom snapped back. Would you rather be homeless? Is that what you want? The dinners got worse after that. The men got handsier. They'd rest their hands on our knees under the table or play with our hair. Mom would watch from across the restaurant and text us reminders to smile more. The payments went up too. $500, $800. One man gave her $1,000 after I let him hold my hand through the entire meal. I started snooping through mom's phone when she was in the shower. The texts made my skin crawl. Men asking for the younger one or saying things like, "She looks even younger in person. Perfect." Mom would negotiate prices like we were items at a garage sale. The breaking point came when mom measured Katie for a new dress, a tight red one that she ordered online. "Mr. Creep specifically requested you wear something that shows off your figure," she told my sister. "He's willing to pay 3 months of our rent for one special evening." That night, Katie swallowed a bottle of mom's X. I found her on the bathroom floor and called 911. At the hospital, mom coached us on what to say. "She's been stressed about school, took too many by accident. You know how teenagers are." I held Katie's hand and repeated mom's lies to the doctor. But inside, something finally snapped. When we got home, I started recording everything. Mom's coaching sessions where she taught us how to flirt, her phone calls negotiating prices, the cash exchanges in parking lots. Mom's choice for Katie's special evening was her former boss, Mr. Creep, the one who'd fired her. She agreed to let him take Katie to a hotel downtown for $5,000. Just them, all night. I hid in the trunk of mom's car when she drove Katie to the hotel. I watched her take an envelope of cash from Creep and hand over a room key. My hands shook as I called 911 from the hotel bathroom. I told them everything. How my mom was selling my little sister to a grown man in room 423. But when the police arrived, Creep answered the door in his suit, calm as could be. He told them it was all a misunderstanding. Mom showed up and said we were troubled girls who made things up for attention. She even cried a little, the same fake tears she taught us to use if dinner conversation got awkward. The officers left with just a warning about family disputes. Mom dragged us home in silence. That night, I woke up to an empty house. Mom and Katie were gone. All I found was a note. "Taking your sister to stay with friends who can help with her mental health. Don't try to find us." But I knew the truth. Those weren't friends. They were the numbers in her leather journal. The men who paid top dollar for the younger one. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. The text made my blood freeze. "Your mother says you're ready for overnight appointments now." I stared at the text, my hands trembling. The phone slipped from my fingers and clattered onto my bedroom floor. My heart hammered against my ribs as I scrambled to pick it up, checking the number again. Unknown, just like all the others in mom's journal. I threw on yesterday's jeans and a hoodie, shoving my feet into sneakers. The house felt too quiet, too empty. Katie's bedroom door stood open, her bed still unmade from when mom must have woken her in the middle of the night. Her stuffed elephant, Mr. Peanuts, lay abandoned on the floor. My fingers flew across my phone screen, calling Katie's number, straight to voicemail. I tried mom next, same result. They'd turned off their phones or thrown them away. I ran to mom's room and tore through her closet, throwing clothes aside until I found the leather journal hidden in a shoebox. My hands shook as I flipped through the pages. Names, numbers, payment amounts, and worst of all, notes. Prefers brunettes, likes them shy, willing to pay extra for overnight. The most recent entry made bile rise in my throat. Katie, Mr. Creep, $5,000 deposit, $5,000 on delivery to Chicago address. Chicago, 3 hours away. I photographed every page with my phone, then searched mom's dresser drawers. In the bottom drawer, wrapped in an old sweater, I found a manila envelope. Inside were printouts of emails between mom and various men, discussing arrangements and special requests. One email chain with Creep went back months, negotiating prices and discussing Katie specifically. My phone buzzed again, another unknown number. The text read, "Your mother tells me you're very mature for your age. I'd like to meet you tonight. I'll make it worth your while." email. I wanted to throw up. Instead, I typed back, how much? 3 dots appeared, then $2,000 for dinner and whatever happens after. I swallowed hard and responded, I need to know you're serious. Send proof of funds first. While waiting for a response, I grabbed Mom's laptop from her desk. Her password was Katie's birthday. She'd never been creative with security. I opened her email and found dozens of conversations with men from the journal. Some included photos of me and Katie that Mom had sent, advertising us like products in a catalog. One email thread with someone named Richard caught my eye. He'd wired Mom $10,000 last month for what he called exclusive access to Katie. The emails got more explicit as they went on, discussing things that made my skin crawl. Richard mentioned a safe house in Chicago where business could be conducted privately. My phone buzzed. The unknown number had sent a screenshot of a bank balance showing over $50,000. Satisfied? The next text read, now, about tonight. I played along, negotiating details while my mind raced. If I could get this guy to meet me, maybe I could get information about where Mom took Katie, or at least buy time to figure out my next move. We agreed to meet at a steakhouse downtown at 8 p.m. He'd recognize me from the photos Mom sent him. I had 6 hours. First, I tried calling Dad. His phone rang 4 times before going to voicemail. I left a frantic message explaining everything, begging him to call back. Then I remembered why he'd left in the first place. He'd discovered what Mom was starting to do and wanted no part of it. He'd tried to get custody, but Mom had convinced the judge he was unstable. Next, I drove to the police station. The same officer from the hotel incident was at the desk. Officer Martinez, his badge read. He recognized me immediately and his expression hardened. I placed the journal on the counter along with printed emails. Officer Martinez flipped through a few pages, then pushed everything back toward me. These could be fake, he said. Your mother already explained you have a history of making up stories. Please just look at the evidence. My sister is in danger. Your sister is with your mother, her legal guardian. Unless you have proof of immediate harm, this is a family matter. I pulled up the photos on my phone of the journal entries, the emails, everything. Martinez glanced at them briefly. Could be photoshopped. Look, kid, false accusations are serious. Your mom could press charges against you for harassment. I left the station feeling hollow. Mom had gotten to them first, painted me as the troubled teen making wild accusations. Classic mom, always 3 steps ahead. Back in my car, I called the Department of Children and Family Services. After being transferred 4 times, I finally reached a caseworker named Janet. I explained everything, talking fast, trying to get it all out before she hung up. Janet listened, then sighed. Without physical evidence of abuse or a child in immediate danger, we can't intervene in custody arrangements. Has your sister been physically harmed? She tried to cull herself. According to our records, that was ruled an accidental OD. Your mother is seeking mental health treatment for her, which shows appropriate parental care. Another dead end. I wonder why the mom measured Katie for that specific red dress when Mr. Creep requested it. Seems like there's something calculated about how she's presenting this whole situation to her daughters. Mom had covered every angle. I drove home and tore through Katie's room, looking for anything that might help. In her diary, hidden inside her pillowcase, I found entries dating back months. She'd documented everything. The dinners, the way men looked at her, how Mom coached her to act. The last entry was from 2 days ago. Mom measured me for that gross dress today. I can't do this anymore. I'd rather be dead than let Mr. Creep touch me. Maybe if I'm gone, she'll stop making my sister do this. Tears blurred my vision. Katie had been trying to protect me. I searched Mom's room again, more carefully this time. Behind her bathroom mirror, I found a small key. It looked like a safety deposit box key. The bank name was etched on it. First National Downtown Branch. My phone showed 4 p.m. 4 hours until the meeting with the creep who'd texted me. At the bank, I tried to access the safety deposit box but hit another wall. Only Mom was authorized. The teller wouldn't even confirm the box existed without proper ID and authorization. Desperate, I drove to Mom's sister's house. Aunt Carol lived in a nice suburb, the kind with HOA rules and perfect lawns. She answered the door in yoga clothes, clearly surprised to see me. Have you heard from Mom? I asked. Carol's face tightened. Your mother and I don't speak anymore. Not since I found out about her business arrangements. You know? She nodded, looking uncomfortable. I tried to intervene months ago. Threatened to call CPS. Your mother said she'd tell everyone I was having an affair with my trainer. She had photos. Fake ones, but convincing enough. I'm going through a custody battle with my ex. I couldn't risk it. Even family wouldn't help. Mom had leverage on everyone. She took Katie to Chicago, I said. Sold her to some man named Creep for $10,000. Carol's face went white. Oh God, I should have. I'm so sorry. Can you at least watch this? I handed her a USB drive with all the evidence I'd collected. If something happens to me, give this to the FBI, not local police. Carol took the drive with shaking hands. Back in my car, I had 2 hours before the meeting. I stopped at an electronics store and bought a small voice recorder. Then I went home and changed into one of the dresses Mom had bought for our dinners, a black one that made me look older. I recorded a video on my phone explaining everything, uploaded it to a cloud account, and scheduled it to post on social media in 12 hours unless I canceled it. Insurance. At 7:45, I parked outside the steakhouse. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. The man had texted me a description. Gray hair, blue suit, red tie. He'd be at a corner booth. I walked in, scanning the restaurant. There he was, exactly as described. Probably 60 years old, wedding ring glinting under the lights. He smiled when he saw me, the kind of smile that made me want to run. Instead, I walked over and slid into the booth across from him, turning on the recorder in my pocket. You must be, he started. Let's skip the pleasantries, I said, trying to sound confident. You know why I'm here, he chuckled. Right to business. I like that. Your mother raised you well. Speaking of my mother, I haven't been able to reach her. She took my sister somewhere. Ah yes, she mentioned she was traveling. Business opportunity, she said. With Mr. Creep? Creep? His expression flickered. I wouldn't know about that. Come on. I leaned forward, forcing myself to smile the way Mom taught me. You all know each other. You share recommendations. He studied me for a moment. Perhaps, but that's not why we're here tonight. Actually, it is. I pulled out my phone. See, I have a problem. Mom took my sister to Chicago, and I need to find them. Help me with an address, and I'll make tonight very memorable for you. His eyes narrowed. Your mother warned me you might be difficult. She called you this afternoon, said you'd stolen some of her property and might try to cause trouble. She asked me to keep you occupied until she finished her business. My blood ran cold. Mom had anticipated this. Of course she had. How long? I asked. Oh, through the weekend at least. She said you needed to learn your place in the family business. I stood up, but he grabbed my wrist. His grip was stronger than I expected. Leaving so soon? Your mother already accepted my payment. Would be ashamed to disappoint her. I yanked my hand free and ran for the door. Behind me, I heard him call out, but I didn't look back. In the parking lot, I fumbled for my keys, dropping them twice before managing to unlock my car. As I drove away, my phone rang. Mom, I answered, putting her on speaker. Really, sweetie? Running away from Mr. Davidson? That was very rude. Where's Katie? Safe, which is more than I can say for you if you keep this up. Bring her back, Mom, please. Oh, honey, Katie's found her calling. Mr. Creep is very pleased with his investment. They're getting along wonderfully. You're sick. I'm practical. Do you know how much debt your father left us in? How close we were to living in our car? I did what I had to do to keep us afloat. By selling your daughters? By using our assets wisely. You could have had a nice life if you just played along. Now? Well, Mr. Davidson is very upset. He might want a refund, and I'll have to offer him something else. Maybe that video you made at the hotel? My heart stopped. What video? Oh, please. You think I didn't have cameras in the car? I have lovely footage of you calling 911, trying to ruin everything. I'm sure the police would be interested to see how you've been stalking and harassing successful businessmen. The call ended. I pulled over, my whole body shaking. Mom had been recording me. She'd turned my attempt to save Katie into evidence against me. My phone buzzed. A video file from Mom. I opened it and saw myself in the hotel bathroom, calling 911. The angle made it look like I was alone, possibly making a false report for attention. Another text. Come home, sweetie. We'll discuss your future in the family business. Or I send this to the police and tell them you've been making threats against Mr. Davidson. I sat in my car on the side of the highway, tears streaming down my face. Every move I made, Mom had already anticipated. Every attempt to get help had been blocked. She'd isolated me completely, turned me into the villain of the story. But I couldn't give up. Katie was out there, trapped with a monster, and I was her only hope. I wiped my eyes and started driving. Not home, never home again. I had one last option. One person Mom might not have considered. Dad might have left us, but he'd tried to fight for custody once. Maybe he'd fight again if he knew the truth. I drove through the night toward his apartment 2 states away, praying I could find him before Mom realized where I'd gone. The recorder in my pocket held my conversation with Davidson. The USB with Carol had all the evidence. And somewhere in Chicago, my baby sister was counting on me to be smarter than our mother for once in my life. I had to try. Even if it meant becoming a runaway. Even if it meant Mom would paint me as the disturbed daughter who'd lost her mind. Katie needed me, and I wouldn't stop until I found her. The highway stretched endlessly ahead, my headlights cutting through the darkness. Every mile took me farther from home, farther from Mom's reach, but also farther from Katie. My phone vibrated constantly on the passenger seat. Unknown numbers, Mom's number, more unknown numbers. I ignored them all. Around 2 a.m., exhaustion forced me to pull into a rest stop. I locked the doors and tried to sleep, but every passing truck made me jump. Mom had connections everywhere. Any of these vehicles could be carrying one of her clients looking for me. My phone battery was dying. I turned it off to preserve power and dozed fitfully until dawn broke through the windshield. My neck ached from sleeping upright, and my mouth tasted like fear and exhaustion. I started driving again, stopping only for gas and to use the bathroom. At a truck stop, I bought a cheap prepaid phone with cash. Mom couldn't track this one. I memorized Dad's number from my dead phone before abandoning it in a dumpster. Dad's apartment complex looked exactly as I remembered from the one visit Mom had allowed 3 years ago. Faded brick buildings arranged around a cracked parking lot. His truck sat in the same spot, rustier now but still displaying his company logo, Johnson's Plumbing. I climbed the stairs to apartment 2B and knocked. No answer. I knocked harder, then pounded with my fist. Finally, footsteps approached. The door opened to reveal Dad, thinner than I remembered, wearing a stained undershirt. His eyes widened in shock, then narrowed with suspicion. I showed him everything. The journal photos, the emails, the recordings. His face grew paler with each piece of evidence. When I finished, he sat heavily on his worn couch, head in his hands. He explained how Mom had destroyed his credibility during the custody battle. She'd planted substances in his truck, then called in an anonymous tip. The charges were dropped eventually, but the damage was done. The judge saw him as an unstable addict trying to steal his children. I begged him to help me find Katie. He made phone calls to old contacts, people who might know something about Chicago safe houses. Most numbers were disconnected. The few who answered claimed ignorance. Hours passed. Dad ordered pizza, but I couldn't eat. My new phone remained silent. No way for Mom to contact me, but also no way to know if Katie was okay. Dad suggested we drive to Chicago together, search the addresses from Mom's emails. It was something, at least. We loaded into his truck as the sun began setting. The drive took 4 hours. Dad filled the silence with apologies. For leaving, for failing to protect us, for being too weak to fight Mom's lies. Why does Mom seem to know exactly what her daughter will do before she does it? This whole phone call feels like Mom's been planning this for way longer than just today. She's got cameras everywhere and backup plans for her backup plans. I stared out the window, watching farmland give way to suburbs, then city sprawl. In Chicago, we drove through increasingly sketchy neighborhoods. The first address address led to an abandoned warehouse. The second was a legitimate massage parlor whose confused owner knew nothing about any Katie. The third address looked promising, a nondescript two-story house with blackout curtains. Dad parked across the street. We watched for an hour, seeing nothing. Then a familiar car pulled into the driveway. Mom's sedan. My heart hammered as she emerged, but Katie wasn't with her. Mom walked to the front door and knocked in a specific pattern. Someone let her in. Dad grabbed my arm as I reached for the door handle. He insisted we needed a plan. But what plan could work against Mom? She always thought 3 steps ahead. We waited another hour. Mom emerged with an envelope, presumably cash. She drove away without noticing us. I memorized the license plate of every car that came and went. Dad suggested we follow Mom, but I had a different idea. That knock pattern meant something. Maybe I could bluff my way inside, pretend Mom sent me. Dad refused to let me go alone. We argued in hushed tones until compromising. He'd wait in the truck with the engine running while I tried to get inside. If I wasn't back in 10 minutes, he'd call the police. I approached the house, my legs shaking. The knock pattern was 3 quick, 2 slow, 1 quick. The door opened to reveal a middle-aged woman with cold eyes. I spun a story about Mom sending me to check on the merchandise. The woman studied me suspiciously, but eventually stepped aside. The house smelled like cigarettes and something medicinal. She led me upstairs. My heart nearly stopped when I heard Katie's voice through a door, weak but unmistakably hers. The woman unlocked the door and gestured me inside. Katie lay on a bare mattress, wearing the red dress Mom had bought. Her eyes were glazed, unfocused, drugged. I rushed to her side, checking for injuries. She seemed physically unharmed but barely conscious. The woman watched from the doorway. I forced myself to remain calm, examining Katie like I was inspecting goods. Inside, rage burned through me. These people had drugged my baby sister. I told the woman Katie didn't look ready for tonight's client. She shrugged, mentioning the substances would wear off in a few hours. Mr. Creep specifically requested her conscious for their date. Fighting nausea, I said I'd take Katie to get cleaned up, make her more presentable. The woman hesitated. I dropped Mom's name repeatedly, acting irritated that they'd let the merchandise get so disheveled. Finally, she agreed, but insisted on accompanying us. I half-carried Katie down the stairs, her feet dragging. The woman followed close behind. At the front door, I pretended to remember something in the car. The woman rolled her eyes but opened the door. Dad's truck idled across the street, just visible in the darkness. I shifted Katie's weight, then shoved the woman hard. She stumbled backward into the house. I ran, dragging Katie, screaming for Dad. He threw the truck into gear, screeching to a stop beside us. The woman appeared in the doorway, shouting. I hauled Katie into the truck bed and jumped in after her. Dad floored it. The woman's shouts faded as we careened around the corner. Katie mumbled incoherently as I held her. Dad drove fast but carefully, taking random turns in case anyone followed. After 20 minutes, he pulled into a hospital emergency room. I carried Katie inside, yelling for help. Nurses rushed over with a gurney. I told them she'd been drugged, possibly assaulted. They whisked her away for examination. A police officer arrived to take my statement. This time, I had proof. The address, the woman who answered the door, Katie's condition. The officer actually listened, taking detailed notes. Hours passed in the waiting room. Dad paced while I sat frozen, replaying everything. Had I gotten there in time? Was Katie physically hurt beyond the substances? A doctor finally emerged. Katie was stable, showing signs of sedatives but no evidence of assault. They were running more tests and would keep her for observation. Relief flooded through me. The police officer returned with a detective. They'd sent units to the house, but it was empty, cleaned out. Of course, Mom had contingencies. The detective questioned me extensively about Mom, the journal, the entire operation. I gave him everything. Photos, recordings, names, dates. He seemed genuinely concerned, unlike Officer Martinez. Dad backed up my story, explaining Mom's history of manipulation. The detective promised to investigate thoroughly. He mentioned Katie would need to be placed somewhere safe while they built their case. Morning arrived with Katie still unconscious. I dozed in the uncomfortable waiting room chair, jerking awake whenever someone passed. Dad brought coffee and stale donuts from the cafeteria. My prepaid phone rang. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Mom's voice was deadly calm. She knew where we were. She knew I'd taken Katie. She had lawyers ready to file kidnapping charges against me and Dad. I told her about the police investigation. She laughed, reminding me of the video from the hotel, the evidence of my instability. Who would believe a troubled teen and her deadbeat father over a concerned mother? The call ended with a threat. Return Katie immediately, or face the consequences. I looked at Dad, saw my own fear reflected in his eyes. Mom wouldn't stop. She'd destroy us all to protect her business. The detective returned with bad news. The house was a rental under a fake name. No evidence remained. Without physical proof or witnesses, building a case would be difficult. I showed him the recorded conversations, the journal photos. He said they'd help, but Mom could claim they were fabricated. We needed Katie's testimony, and she was still unconscious. A social worker arrived to discuss Katie's placement. She couldn't go home to Mom, but she couldn't stay with Dad either. He had no custody rights. Foster care was the likely option. I begged them to reconsider. Katie needed family, not strangers. The social worker sympathized but explained the legal constraints. Unless Mom's parental rights were terminated, options were limited. Katie woke that afternoon, groggy and confused. She cried when she saw me, clinging to my hand. I promised she was safe, that Mom couldn't hurt her anymore. The detective interviewed her gently. Katie confirmed everything. The dinners, the men, the pressure from Mom. She described the house, the woman who'd kept her there, the substances they'd given her, but she couldn't remember specific dates or names beyond Mr. Creep. The substances had affected her memory. The detective assured us her statement still helped, but I could see the doubt in his eyes. Mom arrived that evening with 2 lawyers. She put on a performance worthy of an Oscar, the distraught mother whose mentally ill daughters had run away. She had documentation proving Katie's instability, my history of false accusations. The lawyers threatened lawsuits against the hospital for keeping Katie without parental consent. They produced papers showing Mom had been seeking psychiatric help for us both. Forged, I was sure, but official looking. Security prevented Mom from seeing Katie, but her presence terrorized us. She stood in the hallway, visible through the glass door, watching, always watching. The social worker expedited Katie's placement. A foster family was found. The Johnsons, experienced with traumatized teens. They lived an hour away, far enough to complicate Mom's access. Katie begged not to be separated from me. I promised to visit, to keep fighting for her, but we both knew Mom wouldn't stop. She'd work the system, manipulate the social workers, eventually get Katie back. That night, I made a decision. Mom had taught me well, how to charm, how to manipulate, how to survive. Time to use those skills against her. I called the number of one of Mom's clients from the journal, Robert, who'd always been kind during our dinners. He answered on the third ring. I explained everything, begging for his help. Long silence. Then he admitted he'd suspected something was wrong, but convinced himself the dinners were innocent. The guilt in his voice was palpable. Robert agreed to provide a statement to the police. He gave me names of other men who'd expressed concerns about Mom's operation. Not all were predators. Some genuinely believed they were helping struggling students. Over the next 2 days, I contacted 12 men from Mom's journal. 7 hung up immediately. 3 threatened me, but 2 agreed to talk to the police, ashamed of their involvement. The detective built a case slowly. Each statement added credibility. The men's testimony confirmed the financial transactions, the nature of the arrangements. Mom had been careful, but not careful enough. Katie was placed with the Johnsons. I visited the day before, spending hours just holding her. She looked so small, so broken. The foster parent seemed kind, promising to protect her. Mom's lawyers filed motion after motion. She painted herself as a victim of her troubled daughter's delusions, but the men's statements undermined her narrative. Bank records showed large cash deposits corresponding to dates in her journal. The investigation expanded. More girls came forward, daughters of Mom's friends who'd been recruited for dinner dates. The pattern became undeniable. Mom's house of cards began collapsing. I stayed with Dad, helping the police however possible. We developed an awkward routine, him working during the day while I organized evidence and made phone calls. Dinners were silent affairs, both of us processing the trauma. One evening, Mom appeared at Dad's door. She'd lost weight, her perfect appearance cracking. She begged me to recant, to say I'd misunderstood everything. There's something odd about how quickly that house emptied out after they rescued Katie. Almost like the woman at the door had a direct line to Mom, or the whole operation runs on some kind of alert system I'm not quite understanding yet. When charm failed, she turned vicious, listing every sacrifice she'd made, every bill she'd paid. Dad told her to leave. She laughed bitterly, reminding him how easily she'd destroyed him before. But something had changed in Dad. He stood firm, protective in a way he hadn't been 3 years ago. After she left, we installed new locks and a security camera. Mom was desperate now, unpredictable. The detective warned us to be careful. Cornered predators often lashed out. The next morning, our tires were slashed. The following night, someone threw a brick through the window. Mom's harassment escalated, but each incident added to the police file against her. I visited Katie at the Johnsons' house. She was starting therapy, slowly processing the trauma. Seeing her in a normal bedroom, with stuffed animals and posters, made me cry. This was the childhood Mom had stolen. The detective called with news. They'd arrested Mom. Multiple charges, including child endangerment, trafficking, and exploitation. Her bail was set high enough to keep her locked up temporarily. But I knew Mom. She had money hidden, connections to exploit. This wasn't over. She'd make bail, hire better lawyers, find new ways to manipulate the system. I was right. Mom made bail within a week, posted by one of her wealthy clients. She immediately began her campaign. Interviews with sympathetic bloggers, claims of being a misunderstood single mother, accusations that Dad and I had conspired against her. The trial date was set for 6 months away. 6 months for Mom to work her magic, to intimidate witnesses, to craft her narrative. I watched her transform herself into the victim, gaining sympathy from people who didn't know better. Some of the men who'd promised to testify backed out, suddenly reluctant to be associated with the scandal. Mom had gotten to them somehow. Threats, bribes, or blackmail. Our case weakened with each lost witness. Katie struggled in foster care. The Johnsons were kind, but she missed me desperately. Phone calls left us both in tears. Mom petitioned for visitation rights, claiming parental alienation. I threw myself into building our case. Every free moment was spent organizing evidence, finding new witnesses, documenting Mom's harassment. Dad helped when he could, but work kept him busy. Then came the breakthrough. One of Mom's former friends, Catherine, contacted me. She'd discovered Mom had tried to recruit her daughter for the dinner business. Catherine had evidence, texts, emails, even a recording of Mom explaining the arrangement. Catherine connected me with other mothers Mom had approached. A network emerged of women who'd rejected Mom's proposals, horrified by the suggestion. Their testimonies painted a pattern of predatory behavior. The detective was thrilled. This evidence showed intent, planning, a systematic operation. Mom couldn't claim misunderstanding or desperation when she'd tried recruiting multiple girls. Mom must have sensed the tide turning. Her harassment intensified. Dead animals appeared on Dad's doorstep. My new phone received constant threats from unknown numbers. Someone keyed LIAR into Dad's truck, but every incident strengthened our case. The detective assigned an officer to do regular drive-bys. The prosecutor assured us Mom was digging her own grave with this behavior. I focused on Katie, visiting whenever possible. Slowly, she began healing. Her therapist reported progress. Fewer nightmares, more engagement with the foster family. She even made a friend at her new school. The trial approached like a storm on the horizon. Mom's lawyers filed motion after motion, trying to suppress evidence, dismiss charges, change venues. Most were denied, but the legal maneuvering exhausted us. I spent spent days preparing my testimony with the prosecutor. She warned me about Mom's lawyers. They'd try to paint me as unstable, vengeful, a liar. I had to remain calm, stick to facts, not let them rattle me. Katie would testify via closed-circuit video to avoid facing Mom directly. The prosecutor assured us this was standard for vulnerable witnesses. I worried about her reliving the trauma, but knew her testimony was crucial. 2 weeks before trial, disaster struck. Robert, our key witness, recanted his statement. He claimed I'd coerced him, that he'd never actually met me or Katie for dinners. Mom had definitely gotten to him. The prosecutor remained optimistic. We had other witnesses, documentary evidence, Katie's testimony, but losing Robert hurt our credibility. Mom's lawyers would use his recantation to cast doubt on everything. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. The weight of protecting Katie crushed me. What if Mom won? What if the jury believed her lies? What if Katie had to return to that nightmare? Dad tried reassuring me, but I saw his own fear. We'd both underestimated Mom before. She had a talent for survival, for turning situations to her advantage. The trial felt like our last chance. Then, unexpectedly, help arrived. A woman named Sarah contacted the prosecutor. She'd been one of Mom's girls years ago, before Katie and I were born. She'd kept quiet out of shame, but seeing the news coverage gave her courage. Sarah's testimony was devastating. She described Mom's grooming techniques, the gradual escalation, the psychological manipulation. Her story mirrored ours perfectly, establishing a pattern spanning decades. More women came forward. Mom had been running variations of this scheme for years, always careful to avoid detection, but the trial publicity broke their silence. The prosecutor had to request a delay to process all the new witnesses. Mom's carefully crafted image crumbled. The sympathetic bloggers disappeared. Her wealthy supporters distanced themselves. She was no longer the misunderstood mother, but a calculating predator. Her lawyers tried damage control, claiming the new witnesses were lying for attention or money, but there were too many, their stories too consistent. Mom's house of cards collapsed completely. I visited Katie the night before my testimony. We sat in her bedroom at the Johnsons, holding hands. She told me she was proud of me for fighting, for not giving up. Her strength amazed me. The morning of trial arrived gray and drizzling. Dad drove me to the courthouse, neither of us speaking. Inside, the hallways buzzed with reporters, advocates, and curious onlookers. Mom sat at the defense table wearing a conservative suit, her hair pulled back severely. She'd lost more weight, her face gaunt. When our eyes met, I saw something I'd never seen before: fear. The prosecutor stood and began her opening statement. I watched Mom's face carefully, searching for cracks in her composed mask. Her fingers drummed against the defense table, the only sign of her nervousness. My testimony came on day 3. Walking to the witness stand felt like crossing an ocean. The prosecutor guided me through the evidence methodically. I described the dinners, the escalation after Mom lost her job, finding Katie on the bathroom floor. My voice stayed steady, even as Mom's lawyer objected repeatedly. Cross-examination was brutal. Mom's lawyer attacked every detail, suggesting I'd misunderstood innocent networking dinners. He implied I was jealous of the attention Katie received. When he brought up the hotel video, I explained calmly how Mom had edited it to remove context. The jury watched intently, some taking notes. Katie testified the following week via video link from another room. Her voice trembled as she described the men touching her hair, Mom's coaching sessions, the night she took the pills. When asked about the Chicago house, she broke down crying. The judge called a recess. Sarah's testimony devastated Mom's defense. She produced diary entries from 20 years ago detailing identical grooming tactics. Other women followed, each adding another layer to the pattern. Mom's lawyer tried discrediting them, but their stories aligned too perfectly. The financial evidence proved damning. Bank records showed deposits matching dates in Mom's journal. Text messages recovered from her phone explicitly discussed prices for time with the girls. One particularly horrific exchange negotiated Katie's virginity like a commodity. Mom took the stand on day 12. She portrayed herself as a desperate single mother who'd made poor choices. She claimed the dinners were legitimate networking, that we'd misinterpreted everything. But under cross-examination, her story unraveled. She couldn't explain the large cash deposits or the explicit texts. During a break, I found Dad crying in the hallway. He blamed himself for not fighting harder during the custody battle. I hugged him, both of us exhausted from reliving our family's destruction in public. The prosecutor's closing argument was masterful. She walked the jury through the evidence chronologically, showing how Mom's operation evolved from inappropriate dinners to selling her own daughters. She emphasized the pattern spanning decades, the multiple victims, the calculated nature of the crimes. Mom's lawyer made one last attempt to paint her as a victim of circumstance. He suggested we'd conspired to frame her, that the other women were opportunists seeking attention, but his arguments felt hollow against the mountain of evidence. The jury deliberated for 2 days. I stayed with Dad, neither of us able to eat or sleep. Katie called constantly from the Johnsons, anxious about the verdict. We tried reassuring her, but uncertainty gnawed at us all. When the call came, we rushed to the courthouse. Mom stood as the jury filed in, her mask finally cracking. The foreman read the verdicts, guilty on all counts: child endangerment, trafficking, exploitation of minors. Mom's legs buckled. Her lawyer steadied her. The judge scheduled sentencing for the following month. Mom was remanded to custody immediately, her bail revoked. As officers led her away, she looked back at me. No words were exchanged, but her expression said everything: disbelief that I'd actually won. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. The prosecutor shielded me, giving a brief statement about justice for the victims. I said nothing, too emotionally drained to form coherent thoughts. That night, I called Katie with the news. She cried with relief, then asked the question I'd been dreading: what happened now? The Johnsons were wonderful, but she wanted to come home, except we didn't have a home anymore. Dad and I discussed options over coffee the next morning. His apartment was too small for 3 people. He'd been saving money, hoping to get a big bigger place eventually. The trial had depleted those savings on gas, missed work, and meals. I spent the next weeks in a strange limbo. The immediate danger was over, but the future remained uncertain. I helped the prosecutor prepare for sentencing, providing a victim impact statement. Writing it forced me to confront the full scope of what Mom had done. Katie's therapy intensified. Her therapist recommended she stay with the Johnsons through the school year for stability. It culled me to agree, but Katie needed consistency more than she needed me right then. I enrolled in online classes to finish high school. Dad's apartment became my makeshift classroom. He worked longer hours, trying to save for a place where Katie could eventually join us. I got a part-time job at a grocery store, contributing what I could. Sentencing day arrived faster than expected. The courtroom was packed with Mom's victims, some I'd never met. Mom appeared gaunt in her orange jumpsuit, her perfect appearance completely gone. She'd aged years and weeks. The judge allowed victim impact statements. I read mine with shaking hands, describing the theft of our innocence, the destruction of our family, the ongoing trauma Katie faced. Other women shared their stories. Mom stared at the defense table throughout. When offered the chance to speak, Mom delivered a rambling apology that felt more like self-pity. She blamed her ex-husband, poverty, society's expectations of women. She never once acknowledged the harm she'd caused. The judge showed no sympathy. He sentenced Mom to 25 years, eligible for parole in 15. She'd be in her 60s when released. As the gavel fell, I felt something I hadn't expected: emptiness. Justice didn't erase the damage. After the sentencing, several of Mom's victims approached me. They thanked me for my courage, said I'd given them closure. Sarah hugged me tightly, whispering that I'd done what she couldn't 20 years ago. The prosecutor connected me with victim services. They offered counseling, support groups, resources for rebuilding. I accepted it all, knowing the real work was just beginning. Katie and I developed a new routine: video calls every night, visits every weekend. The Johnsons welcomed me into their home, treating me like extended family. Slowly, Katie began healing. She smiled more, had fewer nightmares, even joined the school drama club. Dad and I grew closer through shared trauma. We cooked dinners together, watched old movies, talked about everything except Mom. He started attending therapy too, working through his guilt over leaving us with her. 3 months after sentencing, Dad found a 3-bedroom rental. Nothing fancy, but it had space for Katie when she was ready. We spent weekends painting rooms, buying secondhand furniture, making it feel like home. I got my GED and enrolled in community college. The grocery store promoted me to shift supervisor. Life developed a rhythm: work, school, visiting Katie, helping Dad with household stuff. Normal felt foreign, but welcome. Katie's therapist recommended a gradual transition. She started spending weekends with us, then school breaks. By summer, she was ready to move in permanently. The Johnsons threw her a going-away party, promising to stay in touch. Our first night together as a family, minus Mom, was quietly emotional. We ordered pizza, watched Katie's favorite movie, pretended everything was normal, but when she hugged us goodnight, the tears came. Good tears, healing tears. Dad took on more plumbing jobs to cover Katie's therapy costs. I balanced work and school while making sure Katie kept up with homework. We weren't perfect, but we were trying. Some days were harder than others. Katie returned to public school that fall. We chose a different district where nobody knew our story. She made friends, joined clubs, slowly reclaimed her teenage years. I drove her to school each morning, our own private ritual. One evening, while doing homework at the kitchen table, Katie asked if I thought Mom ever loved us. I couldn't answer immediately. Maybe she had, in her twisted way. Or maybe we'd just been assets to her. I told Katie it didn't matter anymore. We had each other. The grocery store offered me full-time management training. It meant dropping to part-time classes, but the health insurance would cover Katie's ongoing therapy. Dad said he was proud of me for stepping up. I was just doing what needed to be done. We established new traditions: Sunday dinners where we each cooked one dish, movie nights with way too much popcorn, board game tournaments that got surprisingly competitive, building a family from the ashes of the old one. Katie started dating a boy from her math class. Dad and I vetted him thoroughly, probably scaring the poor kid, but Katie laughed about it later, said it felt good having overprotective family. Normal problems felt like gifts. I saved money slowly, planning for a 4-year college eventually. My manager wrote recommendation letters, praising my work ethic and leadership. Teachers at the community college offered guidance. People wanted to help once they knew I was trying. Some nights I still woke up panicked, dreaming Mom had found us. But the episodes decreased over time. Katie had them too. We'd sit together in the living room, drinking hot chocolate, reminding each other she was locked away. Dad started dating a woman from his plumbing supply store. He was nervous about introducing her, worried we'd feel betrayed. But Martha was kind, understanding, never trying to replace anyone. She brought stability Dad needed. By the 1-year anniversary of Mom's sentencing, life had found its rhythm. Katie was thriving in school. I was halfway through my associate's degree. Dad's business was growing. We weren't rich, barely middle class, but we were safe. That anniversary night, we didn't talk about Mom. Instead, we looked through photo albums from before everything went wrong, pictures of family vacations, birthday parties, normal moments we'd forgotten existed. Katie pointed out how young we looked, how innocent. The next morning, I dropped Katie at school, went to classes, then worked the evening shift. An ordinary day in our rebuilt life. Driving home, I realized I'd gone hours without thinking about Mom or the trial. Progress measured in small victories. Katie made honor roll that semester. We celebrated at her favorite restaurant. Her choice, no pressure, just family. She ordered whatever she wanted, laughed freely, acted like the teenager she deserved to be. Dad and I exchanged grateful looks over dessert. I decided to major in social work, wanting to help kids like us. My advisor warned it would be emotionally difficult given my background, but I'd already survived worse. Maybe my experience could help others navigate their trauma. Katie announced she wanted to try out for the school play. We practiced her audition pieces for weeks, Dad reading other parts in ridiculous voices voices. She got cast as the lead's best friend. Opening night, we sat front row, embarrassing her with our enthusiasm. Martha moved in gradually, first a drawer, then a closet, finally officially. Katie and I had worried about feeling displaced, but Martha understood boundaries. She became an ally, another adult Katie could trust. Our definition of family expanded. I transferred to a 4-year college as a junior, commuting to save money. The workload was intense, but Katie helped by taking over some household chores. She'd grown so much, no longer the broken girl from the hospital. During my senior year, Katie started looking at colleges herself. She wanted to study psychology, to understand what happened to us. We toured campuses together, imagining her future. She gravitated towards schools close enough to visit but far enough to be independent. Graduation day arrived with unexpected emotions. Dad, Katie, and Martha cheered as I walked across the stage. First in our family to get a degree. Katie said I was her hero. I told her she was mine. Her strength had saved us both. I found a job at a local youth services agency. The work was hard, sometimes triggering, but meaningful. Every kid I helped felt like defying Mom's legacy. Katie volunteered there during summers, finding her own way to heal through helping. Katie left for college on a scholarship she'd earned through hard work. Dropping her off, I cried harder than expected, but they were proud tears. She'd made it through everything and still chose hope. Dad and I drove home in comfortable silence. The house felt empty without Katie, but we adapted. Video calls, care packages, weekend visits when possible. She thrived at school, making friends, dating, studying hard, normal college problems that we celebrated for their ordinariness. I advanced at work, eventually supervising other caseworkers. Dad's business expanded to 3 employees. Martha became the grandmother Katie never had. We built success from survival, one day at a time. Katie graduated with honors, immediately accepted to graduate school. At her celebration dinner, she thanked us for saving her. Dad and I protested. She'd saved herself. But Katie insisted we'd shown her it was possible to rebuild after destruction. Years passed in ordinary ways. Careers advanced. Relationships deepened. Holidays came and went. We stopped marking time by the trial, instead measuring life by achievements and moments of joy. Mom became a distant shadow rather than a looming threat. Katie became a therapist specializing in trauma. I ran programs for at-risk youth. Dad's plumbing business thrived. Martha kept us all grounded. We'd built lives of purpose from profound pain, choosing healing over bitterness. Sometimes I wondered if Mom thought about us in prison. Did she regret her choices or just getting caught? It didn't matter. We'd moved beyond needing answers from her. Our lives were our own now, hard-won and cherished. The last time I visited Mom's old house, it was being demolished. Neighbors said it had been empty since the trial, unable to sell given its history. I watched the wrecking ball swing, feeling nothing but mild curiosity. That life was gone, replaced by something harder earned, but infinitely more precious. Katie called that evening, excited about a research opportunity. We talked for an hour about her work, her boyfriend, plans for the holidays, normal conversation between sisters who'd survived the unthinkable. After hanging up, I sat in my apartment, grateful for the quiet life I'd built. Tomorrow would bring new challenges at work, dinner with Dad and Martha, maybe a movie with friends, small pleasures that once seemed impossible. I'd learned happiness wasn't grand gestures, but accumulated moments of peace. Looking back, I sometimes marveled at the teenager who'd driven through the night to save her sister. That girl felt like a stranger now, desperate, terrified, running on pure adrenaline. I'd grown into someone calmer, steadier, though the fighter remained when needed. Katie and I never discussed writing about our experience or going public. Our story was ours, not for consumption or entertainment. We'd found meaning in private victories, quiet healing, the radical act of living normal lives after extraordinary trauma. As I prepared for bed in my modest apartment, I felt the satisfaction of a life reclaimed. Not perfect, not without scars, but authentically mine. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges and joys. I'd meet them with hard-won wisdom, surrounded by chosen family, forever grateful for the chance to rebuild. The girl who'd hidden in her mother's trunk to save her sister had grown into a woman who saved others. The cycle of exploitation ended with us. In its place, we'd planted seeds of healing that would grow for generations. That was our real victory. Not just surviving, but transforming survival into purpose. This felt like watching people choose who they want to be instead of letting the past decide for them. Thanks for reading this story with me. I hope you have a wonderful day.